to the ears at all. All right, so once again, thank you everyone. Thanks for taking out some time out of your Sunday to come and learn and share with our guest speaker. On that note, I'd like to play a quick intro video, and after the intro video, then I'll read out the profile of our guest speaker, then we'll get to gist and learn for the day. So 1 second as I play the intro video. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, once again. So I'm just going to read about Dupe Akinsiun's profile very shortly, so we can get to know more about her then, and she can open up the story of her career journey with us. So Dupe is a graduate of chemical engineering that has evolved to become a versatile human resource professional with over 15 years experience spanning across multiple industries, from management consulting to financial services to pharmaceutical and FMCG. She has provided HR services to clients and employers across multiple countries in Africa, Europe, and North America. Wow, that's a nice one to have international exposure. She currently heads the function of the Leadership and Culture Center of Expertise for a leading multinational FMCG in Nigeria. Dupe is certified by leading HR associations and leadership institutions in the US and Canada. She is a frequent TV and radio guest speaker for leading media houses in Nigeria. She is a 2018 advisory mentor to the Queen's Young Leaders across the Commonwealth nations and was recently recognized as one of the 2020 top 50 corporate women in Nigeria by the Leading Ladies Africa Network. Wow. No, I mean, I read through your profile and I remember a quote by Brian Tracy that reads, "Any great achievement is preceded by many difficulties."
So it was my card that was used, but she has a card now.
Great achievements are not possible without them.
No, this is not first time.
Please, can we mute our mics, please? Can we mute our mics?
No, we don't. I don't.
Okay, I've had to mute everyone. Sorry. Okay. So, I mean, I read your profile, Dupe, and you had a lot of great achievements. Well done, I must say. I know that all didn't come very easy. But I'd like to start by asking you, did you have your career all figured out? Or, you know, things just came by and you just sort of discovered yourself from chemical engineering to human resources and all of that? So it would be nice to hear, you know, a summary of your career journey so you can take from what has helped you over the years. Over to you, Dupe.
Wow, thank you so much, Lara, for this exciting time. It feels like Tales by Moonlight, just that. You know, it feels, I mean, it's so good to learn in such a relaxed and amiable environment, and I'm so honored to be here. I want to acknowledge our president, of course. Let me call him His Excellency.
Yes.
All right. Ogawale of the highest order, right? I celebrate you, sir. Thank you for always supporting us in everything we're doing. And of course, to all our colleagues and maybe aspiring HR professionals on this call, I want to recognize everyone. And I want you to know that we're in this journey together. And so your story will be told someday soon. All right. It's just a matter of time.
Amen.
Right. So talking about my career, I would say that I had the privilege of my childhood. What does that mean? I've been a very highly reflective child. At a very young age, I was quite lonely, I would say. I was very melancholic. And there was a beauty in that experience as a child. And the beauty was that because I was introverted, I was all by myself mostly, and it came as a result of my position in the family. So I am the third of 5 children. I've got 2 older siblings and 2 younger siblings. So I have 2 big sisters and 2 younger brothers, you know, just like the splits, right? And interestingly, as a child, I processed that position quite differently. It made me feel alone. It made me feel, it made me feel like a divider. It made me feel like I didn't belong anywhere. And so I was mostly by myself. But in that space where I was alone, I used to reflect a lot. So I know a lot of us had childhood dreams of who I want to become and all of that. I had childhood dreams as well, but then I also had questions as a child. I remember how, as a child, watching my immediate older sister design our Christmas dresses, tell stories, you know, some existed, some don't even exist, how she's able to come up with those things. And I'm like, why is she so gifted? And I just didn't think I was gifted, right? But I just wanted to be like her. And so I remember there was a night I tried to do some drawings because she could draw. So I tried to do some things and I couldn't just do it. I couldn't just draw. I couldn't bring myself to draw. And so reflecting as I grew older, I realized that as a child, I had always paid attention to what I had or didn't have. And that kind of started to frame my perspective of my own journey. I've been a present player in my journey. I studied chemical engineering, not because my parents forced me to, because I chose to. I chose to study chemical engineering because I realized I'm very good with maths. That was a strength I had, and nobody, well, my other sister too was good with maths. But for me, yeah, I knew that for me to pass JAM, I needed to do maths in JAM. JAM was going to be my lucky game changer. So when my parents came up with the card of, oh, we want you to be a doctor, you know, your sister is an accountant, then this other one is going into media, you should be a doctor. I'm like, sorry, Dad, you know, it can't even work. And then he came back and he's like, you know, sometimes you like to argue a lot and critique stuff. Maybe you should become a lawyer. That was when I knew that this man did not really have anything concrete. He's just guessing this thing, right? So I was able to, you know, speak to him to say, Dad, you know what, if you want me to pass JAM, and you know, parents don't want you sitting at home for long. So I just used that card. I just said, Dad, you know what, if you want me to pass JAM one time, like, let me just name it, I have to do maths in JAM. And he allowed me, but then he said, if you do maths in JAM, what exactly are you going to be doing? At that point, as a science student, I mean the real science student, not all these science students, right? So I'm saying with a background in science, right? I had read in my geography textbook at the time, Gocheliong, that at some point, because of the chlorofluorocarbon emission, the ozone layer was being depleted, and a time would come, the world, if we don't do anything about the environment, will one day be submerged in water. And so I said, I want to be a part of that solution. I want to create the ozone layer solution. And so that took me to, it was to be gas engineering, but there was no gas engineering in OAU, which I wanted to study. And so I chose chemical engineering, and that's how I found myself in it, yeah. So I would say that to an extent, I've been intentional, I've been present, I've taken specific intentional steps in my career. That's how I would put it, right? So I knew, but of course, I won't tell you that when I started chemical engineering, I knew I was going to go into HR. That also evolved, all right, over time. And maybe as we go on, so I don't get to talk too much, maybe we'll be able to go into how I made the switch, and then we can have that conversation. Thank you, Lara.
Thank you, Dupe. And I mean, from the story that you shared, some of the things that came out clearly were the fact that, one, self-awareness, even though you were very young and perhaps you did not even know maybe what self-awareness was to you then, you knew what you wanted. And from the way your environment played out, you were able to highlight what you wanted for yourself. A lot of us had to compare ourselves with our siblings, and from there, you know, sort of got built negative values and vibes from that, but you identified your strengths and you played to your strengths. I think I found that really profound. Thank you so much, Dupe, for sharing that. So a couple of questions had come in though, and it's about self-leadership.
Wow.
Someone who is very passionate about leadership. And from your story, we could pick the fact that your quest for leadership started from when you were a younger child, from the way you found yourself. So can you talk a bit more about self-leadership? At what point did that awareness come to you to realize, oh, this is one area that I would like to focus on, or you just sort of discovered it? We'd like to hear your experience around self-leadership.
My experience, right? So let me say that my first encounter with leadership was in uni, all right? I was a part of this fellowship on campus, and I remember I had a pastor then who would say, a leader always finds a way to win. I mean, it all started from him maybe giving you tasks, and then it comes and then it tells you, maybe you tell him one reason why you were not able to get it done. And then it will tell you, no, I'm not going to take that because a leader finds a way to win. And then you'll be like, but I've tried everything. I've done everything I know to do and all that. And you'll be like, I don't know what you've done or not done, but I know that leaders find a way to win. And that thing kind of like stuck in my head. Leaders find a way to win. And so when I read John Maxwell's book at the time, I'm like, oh my God, this was where this man got this stuff from. And so my curiosity about leadership, just heightened. In my fellowship on campus also at the time, we read a lot of John Maxwell books, and that really, really helped me. And at some point, at that point, I still didn't think I was going to do anything leadership, but I knew at that point that I was very passionate about personal development, people discovery or personal discovery and all of that. But I remember my first employer was Kimberly Ryan. I worked with Kimberly Ryan, and my boss at the time, Enife Atobiloye, I remember she had this peculiar course she always rolled out for organizations. It was on self-leadership, but she called it connaissance de soi. That's the French word for self-leadership. And I remember, each time I sat in that class, looking at those images, those pictures, the conversations that took place in the classroom, I wanted to be great. I wanted to be like those guys that will be projected someday as a topic of discussion where success is concerned, impact is concerned, influence is concerned. And, it just for me started with me. So I would say that helped me, that image. And I would also give credit to one of my lecturers at the time, because now we're trying to zero in on self-leadership. I won't say I really led myself effectively when I was on campus. I didn't. I wasn't so balanced, okay? I had some struggles, I had some victories, but I came out of that place. And I remember just before I graduated from school, one of our lecturers, I was going to graduate school. I graduated from school with a CGPA of 2.73, and you would agree with me, that's not so fantastic, all right? Yes, it's a 2.2 and all that, but it just didn't feel good. But this lecturer did something. He was to get our clearance forms, just before we left school. And he said, before I sign you out of this department, you're going to submit to me your 5-year plan. Which one is 5-year plan? On top what now? Okay, we've given you projects. We've given you lab something. We've submitted. Which one is 5-year plan? And, and for a moment I stopped. I'm like, okay, wait a minute. What stops you from having a 5-year plan for yourself, right? So I sat down and I crafted stuff. So as a 500 level, about to graduate student, I told myself that in 5 years from leaving campus, I wanted to be working in a multinational as an HR consultant. I wanted to have an international HR certification. I wanted to, I wanted to be an HR consultant. I wanted to have an HR certification, an international HR certification, and I wanted to be working with a multinational, aside other personal goals like get married and maybe have a child. Interestingly, I left school January 2008, precisely. Yeah, so I need to, January 2008. By December 2010, I was already working with PricewaterhouseCoopers as an associate HR consultant, and I had acquired my PHR from SHRM. And so I realized, and by that time too, I was married, okay? And I was expecting a set of twins. The 5 things I wrote down on my goals, the ones that were outside my control were done, had been ticked, and the ones within my control had also been done. And, and I attribute this to, yes, there's the God factor, where those things that are outside your control. I mean, if you set a goal by December, you want to get married, if nobody shows up, there's nothing you're going to do about it. So there are certain things that are totally outside our control. But the exposure I had early in my career and through my undergraduate helped me build some form of discipline that helped me pursue those goals. Even though I finished with a 2-2, events happened, I got to know about the PwC. God made it so that they needed, at that time, and it was the only year they allowed people with second class lower to apply. But what distinguished me was the fact that I told myself, I've set a goal to get in, I'm going to get in, and I'm not going to play less, So I did all of that. I got in, and, the rest, they say, is history. So, yeah.
Wow. The power of goal setting.
Absolutely.
Discipline and intentionality. That's a nice one. Now, you mentioned while you were a 500 level student in university, you wanted HR. So at what point did you get exposed to HR? Was it while you were in school? At what point? Would
Awesome.
like to hear that connection.
So I didn't know it as HR, yeah? Okay. I did not know it as HR. So what had happened was, after I got into uni with my chemical engineering, degree, when I got in with my chemical engineering degree, can you guys hear me?
Yes, the question, I can hear you.
Can you hear me? Please say yes.
Yes.
We can hear you.
Yes, go on.
So
go on.
by the time I got into uni, and I remember going into my math 101 class, I told you I was a distinction student in further maths. I was a distinction student in mathematics. I was the president of JET Club in secondary school. I was all that. But then I got into uni, and then I'm looking at math 101. And then it looks like somebody that the maths I knew on campus as a secondary school student wasn't what I knew it to be. I just couldn't relate. It was as if somebody changed the settings, like, let's reformat this course, and I just lost touch. It felt so impractical. Now, let me tell you the kind of mindset I had when I was in secondary school. I was going to build on Pythagoras' theorem. That was the kind of things I was thinking of in secondary school. I was that, I loved maths like that. I remember then I would be walking, and then I'll be thinking, the hypotenuse, the adjacent, the opposite. What if, I just wanted to. But then I got into uni, and then it looked so scary and unbelievably different. Somebody said White House. Thanks to White House in Ife. But you know what happened? I realized that I was no longer connected. And that's one thing we need to understand. Don't be too stuck on your goals also that you forget the process. Be aware of what is going on inside you as you're pursuing your goals. Yeah, I had the dream of becoming the first female gas engineer in sub-Saharan Africa. But then I realized that I lost connection somehow. What is going on here? What I used to love no longer felt like a part of me. But then I realized that there was another thing about me that was just showing up at that time. That was my ability to connect with people. I can tell you that if I look at your handwriting, I've not done it in a while though. At that time, it was so intense. If I looked at your handwriting, I can possibly tell you your personality. I can tell you what kind of person you are. I remember there was a time I was in a lecture room on campus. I think it was my 100 or 200 level. And these guys were just gisting beside me. And they were discussing ball. You know how guys can get so passionate about ball. And then I saw this guy, and it was my colleague actually. But what I realized was there was something about him. He felt, what I saw that day was like a child who hadn't had the opportunity to express himself. at home who had bottled up. So the opportunity he had to speak up, you know, the energy he brought to that conversation was different. So I called him. I'm like, I assume you're the last born, right? And then he said yes. And then I just went into further conversation, and he was able to open up, and I could see that a lot had happened in his childhood that made him so aggressive and so, you know, domineering. And I stepped back. I'm like, what is happening to me? Why am I picking things that are not so obvious about people? So I remember speaking to senior colleagues at the time, and they told me about psychology, that maybe I should make a switch to psychology. And so I tried to do that, but it didn't work out. Okay, so I prayed about it. Now, let me tell you, in between somewhere, my father died, all right? My father died in my 300 level. And that also helped me further reinforce why we shouldn't leave our dreams for others. Never leave your dreams for the satisfaction of anyone other than yourself. I'm like, I mean, if I had pursued medicine, if I had pursued law because my father asked me to, where exactly will I be now if this guy is not even here to take the accolades? Because the accolades would have been his, not mine. So moving back into the story, I realized I couldn't move to psychology, but then I prayed about it, and God told me to continue with engineering, that my path will open up as I continued. The interesting thing is, it was in my final year, Lara. I was in an environmental engineering class, and I remember my lecturer was telling us about explosions that had happened in chemical industries across different parts of the world. And in that moment, I realized that the major explosions that have happened in the world as a result of poor people management practices. And for the first time, it was as if my eyes opened. And I walked up to my lecturer afterwards. I said, sir, for the last 5 years or 5 sessions in our course, we have discussed process engineering. We have discussed products and what to, you know, make your product yield very high and efficient and all of that. I said, but we never for once talked about man. We never talked about the person who designs the process. We never talked about the guy, you know, why? I said, is there anything like human engineering or something? And then he said, my dear, he said, if you think there is a gap, he said, then fill it. And that became my challenge. And so I began to ask, but at that time, there was no internet, there was no access to information. So when I talked to people, what they told me was, oh, there's something called HR. And so I started to look out for HR, and then I got into HR. Yeah. So that's how it evolved. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much, Dupe, for sharing that. I mean, when we talk about innovation, one of the things I always say is you need to have a curious mind, you know, and your curiosity will always lead you to innovation. And for me, I think for you, what has also helped is the fact that you were curious and you asked questions. So a lot of times it's also to encourage people to ask questions. The answers we seek are in the questions that we need to ask. Thank you so much for sharing that, Dupe. I mean, I'm going to read through the chat. So Michael states, discover what's going on inside of you at the moment, ability to reconnect with your inner self in response to what you had shared. Thank you so much. Another comment again from a couple of people. MTH 101, go fear you, same experience here from Michael. I mean, the conversations are just ongoing. People are having so much fun and taking so much learnings from your story. Thank you, Dupe, for that. Chinaya raised her hand at one point. Chinaya, you want to ask your questions directly? Okay, so Stella states, just be you in this journey of life and career. Yes, thank you so much for that. Don't be stuck on your goals and forget the process. Profound. Thank you. That's from Sarah Wusu. Thank you. Okay, I have another question here. So I think, Dupe, one of the things that has really helped you is the fact that you had senior colleagues, you had people who helped you to sort of help you to discover answers to your questions. So my question to you is going to be on are leaders born or are leaders made? I mean, there's been a couple of discussions on that. It would be nice to hear your perspective.
Leaders are born because everybody was born at some point. But when we talk about building capacity to influence people, absolutely. It's a learned skill. It's a learned behavior. So that's what I would say, yeah.
Okay. So there's another question here. What's the difference between being a leader and being a boss?
Okay, so let me just quickly say, right? Being a boss and being a leader, they are two different concepts, right? But I think people have, over the years, made it look like being a boss is a bad thing. No, it's, no. Leadership talks about ability to influence, and you don't need to be in a top hierarchy position to be able to influence people. But of course, I have a boss. All right, that I have a boss does not mean I have a bad person in my life. So boss, refers to an authority in your life, well, in your career where your organization is concerned. We have bosses in the workplace, right? So, I mean, I would rather compare leadership with management, than to compare, leadership with boss, or being a leader versus being a boss. In this HR field, Wale, for instance, is a boss to us, for most of us, right? He's the boss. He got into this field earlier. He's got expertise, more expertise than we do. He's got more experience than we have. He's functioning at a capacity higher than us right now. He's a boss. But that doesn't make him bossy, all right? So when we're talking about the attitude of bossing people around, which people these days have made synonymous, or to lording it over people, driving people without being sensitive to how they feel, what they are going through, their level of competence, and a lot of that, then being bossy is bad. All right? But being a leader is no respecter of position. You can be at the least rung of the ladder and be able to influence even the biggest man in the organization. So leadership, when we talk about boss, someone becomes a boss as a result of the journey they've gone through within an organizational structure. So you have people in management, for instance. You may not be in management, but it doesn't mean you're not a leader, all right? You can influence your colleagues, you can influence yourself, you can influence the people under you, and you can influence the people on top of you, right? So being a boss or being a leader, they are two separate concepts, but being bossy, where we describe bossiness as ordering people around, being authoritarian, being very, very bashing and all that, it's definitely not, it's not good.
Thank you. And I think, yes, I totally align with you on your explanation. Thanks for sharing that. And of course, with that example that you gave as well. Okay, so I have a question from Owolabi here. How do you work around office politics being a female HR?
How do I walk around office politics? I join a party and I play it.
Oh, tell us more about that.
I join a party and I... Okay, so I'm going to, Olabi, so the thing is, what is office politics? Office politics is a game of interest, all right? It's a game of interest. Politics about interest, And the truth is, there will always be conflicting interests within the organization. Politics is about, one, you first understanding what your value system is, all right? Knowing what you can take or not take. The second thing about politics is that you cannot play politics effectively for a poor performer. So you need to be a performer even before you can talk about joining party. Because the truth is, when we talk about politics, like I said, it just represents that different interests are conflicting, and then it's a game of what interest, wins or whatever. Now, when I say I join a party and I play, I join all the parties. So my understanding of what is priority per time, my understanding of how to manage my stakeholders per time, and my ability to deliver as a professional is what stands me out. At the moment, I have people I relate with, but I don't have a caucus, all right? I don't have, all those, these are my people. I don't have my people. So that's the mistake people make when it comes to politics. Now, when we talk about, the interest of Nigeria, let me just use Nigerian politics as an example. It's not a function of PDP or ADP or OPC or all those political parties. It's about what is the interest at stake. The interest at stake is that Nigeria moves forward. The interest at stake is that your organization moves forward, that you are achieving your organizational priorities per time. So if this person is advancing the priority, I support them, okay? I support what they are doing. And I use my stakeholder management or engagement skills to manage this other party who may feel like, oh, Dupe has left me. You know, see, 2 things you need to learn to do. Be a performer and step up your stakeholder management skills. This is what politics is about. Stakeholder management helps you understand when to compromise and when to push. It helps you know when to allow certain things to take the backside so you can support other people in advancing their agenda. I don't know. So your understanding of what is priority per time, your understanding of who has the greatest influence per time would also help you. Because sometimes people just enter an organization and think, this guy is the most powerful in this organization. Let me just align. No, the person can be influential on a project, but not necessarily across. Of course, some positions. Let me tell you. So let's say you have your excos, right? Of course, they are highly influential. But imagine that you want to roll out an SAP project. ESCOs become sponsors.
Of course.
The real project owner will be the head of IT. That is the most powerful person that will determine, you know, whether they will go with SAP or this other application software. So if you say, because they are EXCO, you see, the CFO is my friend. If the CTO tells you that this project, we are not doing it, the CFO cannot force him. I don't know if you get what. So It's not about individuals. It's you being smart to understand what exactly is going on here right now. A lot of people are not too patient. A lot of us, we are too busy. I'm doing my work. And don't just be a performer without being present in the organization. Don't just say, I'm doing my work, I'm doing my work. No, one day you will realize that the work you think is your work is not your work. It's the organization's work. And so you need to be organization savvy. Understand the different dynamics that play out and just ensure that you have the main interest, be a performer, and ensure that the organizational priorities are yours every time as well. So that's the best way to put it. We can't talk about it.
Yeah, we can't talk about it. That is one topic that if we start today, we'll finish it. Thank you so much. A lot of comments. Mary says, spot on, thank you, spot on. The best response I've ever heard, the most brilliant explanation I've ever heard in terms of leaders and boss. Thank you so much. So I have a question here. It says, you were or you are a melancholy growing up. It looks like you are now extroverted. How did you make that switch? Or do you have a persona on another personal brand?
Do I have dual personality?
Yes, on another personal brand.
Oh my God. So let me tell you, my journey has been an interesting one. I'm someone who has taken ownership of her being and her doing. Everything I do has an intention or a story behind it, okay? So significantly, I was shy growing up. I was introverted highly. I was melancholic. I was a sad child. Let me tell you, let me just try and paint a picture. I was the kind of child who found or looked for ways to cry. If nothing made me cry, I would go and look for songs by, I won't call the names of the artists, but I will make sure I cried. I will cry thinking about the different bad things that have happened in my life growing up as a child, and just use all of those as a basis just to, cry. But what happened, I remember I was in secondary school at a time, and you know how you go to school with provision? I used to go with one set. And so I had a school mother I will keep my provisions with then. So it was so bad, I couldn't go and collect my provisions from her. Like, I would be too shy. I would be like, if I knock now, what if a senior, what if they ask me, what if? I just wanted to avoid all of those what ifs. So I got someone who could go regardless of who was in the room. And so this girl would tell me, Dupe, if I'm going to get your provision, for every spoon I take for you, I'm going to take for myself. So what was supposed to be one set of provision to last me a certain period became half set because I had to share with this person who was acting on my behalf. I got into university. It got so bad. At some point, I did contemplate suicide because I felt I wasn't proud of what life was like to me at the time. But then somebody reached out to me, a senior friend. You know, he looked at me and he said, "Dupe, there is so much in you, but somehow you're not able to connect with that greatness inside you." And he gave me a book then. The title of the book is Why You Act the Way You Do by Tim LaYe. All right. I'm going to put it in the chat box. So Tim LaYe is TimLahaye. Why You Act the Way You Do. That book, it was as if somebody gave me my blueprint. And the interesting thing is, if you pick that book, you're going to so find yourself in that book. After reading the book, I realized that there was a sequel to the book, and the other book is The Spirit-Controlled Temperament. I realized that all my life I had played the victim. I had played, I don't even know what it was, I was just demonstrating very low behaviors. And so I came out of that, of reading those two books. I said, I'm too busy to be lonely. I'm too busy to pay attention to that person who hasn't come to visit me. You know how people, then, I mean, for me then, you see that on campus, you'd be like, oh my God, this girl looks like a star girl. She's the one everybody's coming to visit. She's the one that has, she's always throwing a party. She's always excited. She's always happy. Like, does she not have problem? All those kind of, I said, I'm too busy to care about somebody visiting me. I told myself, it's going to get to a time in my life where before you come see me, you have to find out if I'm available. You will not, I will not even be caught waiting for anyone. I said, rather than wait for people, I said, I will be that person I've always wanted others to be for me. Wow. And so that shaped me. And I said, I'm going to go all out. I'm going to go and make a difference. I'm going to go out. And that was what it was like on campus, So that took me from my corner to the rest of the world. Wow. And then at different points in time, God even made me understand, you know what? You can't keep being in the background and expecting to shine. Let your light so shine. Being modest is good, but now putting yourself down is not good, all right? So I realized that. So this is a learned behavior. And I can still tell you, I love my space. I love my room. It's the best place in the world you can visit. My room is the best place in the world, right? I'm still introverted, but purpose is what brings me out. I cannot be quiet, all right? I cannot be quiet anymore. Thank you.
Spot on. And Dupe, I can relate with that because I also personally am very introverted. I mean, I'm a flag. I'm not even.
I see. Oh.
But sometimes people ask me, "You're everywhere here and there." You tell me you're introverted. I don't believe you. Oh, if only you know that purpose to make an impact is what brings people like myself and Dupe out. Because sometimes when you are clear what your goals and your purpose are, you need to take that responsibility and not use your personality as excuses, but rather turn it to a place of strength, and then you leverage on that. Okay, we have about 30 more minutes. I have two quick questions here. It states, in the course of your career, have you had to experience dual reporting lines to leaders who belong to two distinct cultures and nationalities? How did you handle how do you handle relating with them in a way that works best for each party, using emotional intelligence, especially when you are caught in the middle of conflicting interests of both leaders?
All right, so thanks for that. That's such a spot-on question because I'm still there, I remember, so the thing is, I got introduced into dual reporting lines, I think about 6 years ago, where I had a local reporting and then a group reporting to somewhere outside Nigeria. And so that kind of put me in a dilemma sometimes, whose priority is the priority. The first thing you need to ask yourself is, who is doing my appraisal? First decide who is the person doing my appraisal. That's the person that the system or the organization recognizes as your leader. Now, it does not mean that the other person won't have an input, all right? So it's going to be a matter of call, like, okay, can you quickly give me a brief on how this person is doing? So it doesn't mean that because you are the one doing my appraisal, yeah, you're my biggest deal. This other one, no, cut the crap, no. It doesn't work like that. But like you mentioned in the question, there is a place for emotional intelligence. Beyond emotional intelligence, it's understanding practice, all right? So currently I sit in Nigeria, but my role is a group role. Group role, it means that I do projects across the entire Coca-Cola Hellenic group, but then I sit in Nigeria. Nigeria hired me for the business, all right? Nigeria pays or has a contribution to my salary. So if Nigeria says we don't want, you stand a risk of losing the job. Now, what do I do? All right. I have so one of the things I did, I set up a routine calls with my local stakeholder where I sit down on a weekly basis discussing priorities, things that are important for the local market, all right? So I'm sitting down with this person, understanding what he wants to achieve for the market here, and I'm able to identify, itemize, and track on a weekly basis with him to see progress, all right? So I'm making a difference and I'm sorting him out where my job impacts on his strategy. Now, the other guy at the group, now, what we do at the group pretty much is we define what we want to roll out across all the business units, and then I implement the one directly for Nigeria. So now, sometimes we have conversations that haven't happened locally, and so it may not be on the priorities for the local business. So what I do is I also have weekly routine calls and sessions, or even more, with my group stakeholders. So what I do is I ensure that I update this, my local partner, with what is going on, and then we're able to customize to our reality. I don't say that, you know what, this is what the group wants us to do, and this is what we're going to do. No, I'm going to serve my customer here based on what he or she wants. So we adapt. And in cases where we say that, you know what, there are some things that are happening across the group that may not necessarily fit into our reality, we eliminate it. And I let this other person, you know, the group stakeholder to know that, you know what, that's a fantastic idea, but based on my collaboration with my local stakeholder, it will not be effective here. So we will not be rolling it out, at least not yet. What it demonstrates to him is interaction with my business, my understanding of what my customer wants, and being able to adapt solutions as need be. So it's also a plus that for them that I'm managing my stakeholder well. For this other person, when I'm able to shift the goals sometimes or compromise on group activities to say that, you know what, okay, if it doesn't work for us, we can pack it and let's focus on these other ones we're doing. It also sends a message to him that this other person doesn't take priority over you, right? So I am here to serve you. So they all have a sense of she is for me, right? So you don't necessarily play the card of, yeah, I'm a group staff. I don't do local stuff. No, you don't do that. You just make sure you carry all your orders along and ensure that they are satisfied. There will be times there will be conflicts, like, you know, but then because I know that this other person is my primary appraiser, I'm saying, okay, you know what, these are the challenges and how do you advise we navigate without compromising? So we negotiate those things and, you know, we move on pretty, that's that to yours as well.
Yeah, thank you, Dupe. Yeah, thank you. I think you've also answered the follow-on question to that first question, which reads, how do you handle relating with functional managers of differing nationalities that always have a challenge with following the laid down processes because they have the same nationality with the BU head you report to who indulges them? I think you sort of answered that in your question. Thank you. So I have one question here that reads,
sorry, let me just quickly put something on that, Lara.
Okay, please go ahead.
Let me quickly put something on that. Make sure things are documented. If they are taking you outside, policy is, if they are taking you out, let there be an evidence that you have advised. And
oops. I think Dupe's network has gotten disconnected. Wow. Okay, wait for Dupe to reconnect. Oh, why is
I'm
it?
so sorry, drops,
Okay,
yeah?
you're back.
I
Okay.
was saying, let
Yeah.
it be documented that you gave an advice, and also ensure that when they insist, ask that, okay, not a problem, that you will like, for them to maybe get an approval from there so that you can execute. If they don't come back to you with an approval.
Then that's fine.
But it is.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that. So I have one question here. What has been your greatest challenge as an HR professional, which your leadership skill was fundamental to solving?
To solving. Wow. Let me try and reflect. I've had many challenging, but my biggest challenge, I would say, came out of an experience I had. So let me tell you. So I had, a consulting background, and at some point, after doing consulting for a while, I told myself I wanted to become a generalist. All right, I wanted to become a generalist. And that's one thing, right? You see, there was a time in my life where being a consultant was the goal. And a time came, it had to be a generalist. And that's what being present in your journey looks like, right? Evolve, understand what is going on. Don't just stay, in one position, except you have a reason why, right? And that is very clear to you. But the goal you set 5 years ago may no longer be relevant, right, at this time. So evolve. So I knew it was time for me to transition from consulting to becoming a generalist. And so I had a short stint at an investment bank where I worked. Yes, in a few months I was there, and then I moved on to a pharmaceutical company. Now, what happened at that point was that I still had my consulting mindset. You know how as consultants, they tell you industry people, they're always playing. Consultants are very strategic. We are the ones doing lots of work, yeah? You have clients across different industries. You're wearing your heels, your blazer, you're speaking big English. You're telling them, frameworks, you're telling them blueprint, you're telling them all those big grammar. And industry people, you think, because they've always been in this industry space, it's only that thing they know. Please don't be deceived. There are smart people in industry. It depends on the industry you've been going on.
Exactly.
I'm telling you, every day for me on my current job, I'm like, no way, this is a consulting experience under Hellenic, because we have so many projects going on, and the level of exposure, the level of learning is just out of this world. So I got into that organization with my consulting cap. Let me come and show them what they're not doing right. Let me come and fix stuff, 6 months plan. And I came in wanting to do work, my people. The kind of adversary I experienced in my life was bad, because I thought, oh, you were hired to make a difference. And so you want to go in to make a difference. Please, before you want to make a difference, please build your influence.
Absolutely.
Build your influence. Build your influence. Of course, when we go for interviews and they say, okay, what, can you quickly share with us, if you're hired for this role, what will your 90-day plan look like? And then you go, I will know my stakeholders. It's not knowing of know their names, so it's understanding what has even been going on before you came, understanding history, understanding the dynamics. Because what happened was I now found myself in the mix. Now, I remember then all I asked was simple, and you have the right intentions, trust me. I mean, you're not going to go and destroy what they have, but because they haven't trusted you yet, they will not buy into your even most.
That's it.
I'm telling you. So I got in and I was thinking, oh guys, you've not been paying pension, you've not been paying, So in their mind, this girl wants to take our money. They were not doing NHF and pension and all that. And their impression was, Dupe has come to reduce our salary. What they did not know was that I had gotten approval to make adjustments in their salary increase that will accommodate that difference. Anyway, you know what I mean? So to cut the long story short, I had a bit of a setback, people having negative energies around me. That really frustrated me at the beginning of my career. And particularly, there was this lady who were supposed to complement one another that really, was all out. In fact, I faced a disciplinary hearing and I was given a final written warning because I did something, I mean, and time will not permit us to go into the details. So I had done a recruitment, which I aligned with the MD, but because certain parts was not documented, the lady who came for the interview happened to be a sibling of my church member. And I did mention it to the MD, like, this person you want to hire, you know, she came for the interview because I sent out a broadcast, but she happens to be a relative of a church member. And then he said, this is my preference. We hired her, but what happened was some people picked it as a compliance issue. And because I did not have an email to show that, I mentioned, and one of the things I made sure I did at the interview of that lady, I said I wasn't going to interview, but I was going to observe. I was going to observe because, number one, I was the only HR person locally who could witness the interview. And also, I witnessed the other interviews. I needed to be able to understand, if you say this girl is good, I need to be able to understand in what context, because I had seen other candidates. But then they felt it was a breach of conflict of interest. And so I was given a final written warning. In fact, the warning said that in spite of my professional expertise, that my behavior put the HR team in a bad light. You know, something very funny. I was angry. I wanted to resign. That even my boss did not trust me. What? This, that, you know, all of those. And I was bitter. I wanted to quit. But then I read a book by John Maxwell, 2 books actually. Sometimes you win, and sometimes you don't lose, you learn. Right? So the opposite of winning is not necessarily losing. Your losing moments, or what you think you're losing, is a learning moment. So turn your losing moments to your learning moments. So I said to myself, what can I learn from this situation? And at some point, I felt I did everything right. There is nothing for me. And my reflection, I said, Dupe, if you think you did everything right and things still went wrong and you still think you are right, then you are foolish. You are really foolish, because if you did everything right, then everything should be right. So what is that thing you could have changed? And I remember there was this other book I read at the time. I said 2 books. First one, Sometimes You Win, Sometimes You Learn. The second book was Winning with People by John Maxwell. Till tomorrow, I can't tell you I finished reading the book. I only read the table of content, and the answer I needed came from the table of content. Now, in that book called Winning with People, one of the laws that John Maxwell shared is called, there were 2 laws that stuck at me. One of the laws says the Bob principle. And the Bob principle says, when Bob has a problem with everyone, then Bob is the problem. There is no way that people can conspire against you and you say all of them are the people with the problem. It's not you. No, everybody cannot be wrong about you. You need to step back and ask yourself, what is that thing in me that has triggered this reaction? So I realized that I needed to check something. Then the second principle I took from that book is the 101% principle. What is the 101% principle? John Maxwell says, look for 1% that you agree on and give it 100%. He says that if you're looking for agreement percentage, you know, to be so high, you'll be missing the point. What is that 1%? As in, like the littlest, if I can use that English. And I stepped back. I said, I believe that everybody here, and I had to have a positive mindset. Everybody here is working for the same objective, to move this organization forward. I think we agree on that. And so because of that mindset, it helped me change my perspective. So what I did, I then scheduled a session with my biggest adversary, if I want to use that word. And we aligned, we had conversations, and I humbled myself to say, you know what, you are the compliance lady. They said I have breached compliance. I've even gotten a sanction, final written warning. What that sanction meant was I will not qualify for bonus. I will not qualify for promotion. I said, but no problem. Please, what I will do is I will work closely with you. I will bounce things off you just to be sure that I'm in line with compliance stores and all that. And it made her feel good. Like, yeah, I'm going. I didn't mind her feeling good. I was going somewhere. I don't know where I was going exactly, but what I meant was I wanted situations to be better. Guess what? That was in 2015. January 2016, we went for our conference. And I remember during the award ceremony, I just heard my name, Dupe. There were 2 Dupes in my office, so I didn't even think it was me. The other ladies in sales, I'm like, okay. I was backing the projector. my colleague just said, Dupe, it's you. I said, no, it can't be me. It can't be me. What did I do? You know, and they said for exceeding performance expectations, you've been recognized as, you've been given a president's award of exceeding exceeding expectations across sub-Saharan Africa. I'm like, what did I do across sub-Saharan Africa? How did I get that? Cut long story short, my final written warning did not stand where my performance stood. They recognized me, they awarded me. The money they paid me in bonus, I will tell you privately. I won't say it on this. Just kidding. But I earned so much money. It was huge. And that did not stop my promotion later. So I don't know if you got anything from that story, but that was my biggest challenge. And I thought I navigated it quite well. Thank you.
Wow, wow. I can relate to that. I mean, having worked in a consulting firm for 11 years and crossing to manufacturing too, and I said to myself, the first thing I need to ensure that I build is build trust. And that was really what helped me. As in, it helped my landing, it helped me to also understand the business better. I had more people who saw me as, you know, oh, she's coming here to come and help us. She's coming here to work with us, not to work against us. So I totally align with it. Sometimes we consultants sort of wear our consulting hat and we want to come in and just, you know, change everything and come out like a consultant, you know. And I think that was a very good one that she shared there. Thank you so much, Dupe. Oh, it's 1 hour already. We have to go. One last question from Michael. What's your advice for people like me who are aspiring HR professionals? Where and how do we start? So maybe in 2 minutes, just one last word for aspiring HR professionals.
Where do you need to start? I would say in terms of experience, really, I tell people consulting is a good place to start from in terms of building yourself and all that. But then not everybody may have the opportunity to start in a consulting firm. And so I would say volunteer for consultants. All right. There are a lot of people, consultants who are doing their own thing, right, who may not have you know, many hands. Like, I mean, somebody still reached out to me like, Dupe, I have this brief. I have a 9 to 5 and I would like to, but there is really no, you know what I mean? So being able to find a consultant you can serve, I will call it serving, and it's not bad to serve people, all right? There's something called servant leadership. You need to be able to serve people to influence them. Most of the jobs I've gotten were based on referrals. People I served have referred me for opportunities I naturally wouldn't have been able to access, okay? So if you can't get into a consulting firm, find a consultant that you can serve. You know, oh, do you want to define job descriptions? Do you want to place an advert on social media? Do you want to recruit people? I can shortlist CVs. Let me know what your criteria are, you know, and all of that, you can start from there. Another place you can start from is your current organization. You know, sometimes people are saying, I want to start HR, I want to leave my current. You don't need to leave your current organization to start HR. If you're in sales or you're in any other unit, all you need to do is say, oh, Lara, please, I see you're the head of HR and all that. I don't know if there are jobs or activities or tasks because I can support with in my less busy time so that I can begin to learn HR. I don't mind working with you guys, but I can start supporting you. That's one way. I'm told, really, imagine that. You know, that is one way. You don't need to resign your job. Yeah, you know what I mean? People think they have to leave their jobs to go and get, you know, no, you don't need to leave your job. You can start from where you're at. So if you have a current job, map your time well, plan your time well to start, you know, volunteering in your organization for the HR team. When opportunity comes in HR and they see that this person has the art, has the attitude, go and register for CIPM if you can. Go and start building yourself. They will know you are serious. When opportunity comes, they will consider you. And guess what? You have built credibility within that organization. So it's before they consider someone from outside, you already know the culture. You've already shown your willingness to do it and a lot of things. It makes it easier. So it's not as rocket science. And if currently maybe you're in between jobs and you want to transition to HR, find consultant. I'm sure find consultant, let me not call names, but there may be something you can help Lara with. There may be people Lara would know. Speak to Lara. Oh, Lara, I would like to volunteer. Some of our colleagues may call Lara, do you know anybody who can help with XYZ? They can refer. That is one way. But it's not by sending message on LinkedIn. Hey, I sent you a message, you have not responded since last 2 weeks. No, that's not what qualifies you for those kind of things. Lara, you're putting, this thing happens monthly. Is there anything I can do? Maybe set up the platform for your Zoom, all of those things. You will find a way to win. You're a leader, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Woo! In an amazing 1-hour session with Dupe. Wow, lots of learnings from your story. I think that a very good recap for your session was stated by Stella, Chuku, Anyawu. Readers are leaders. That's just it. I mean, for every story that you shared, you made mention of 1 or 2 books that you have read. And today you've reinforced the need for us to continue to read so that we can lead at all times. Thank you so much, Dupe. Thank you. It's been an insightful, interesting, inspiring HR story session. I mean, all of the stories that we heard from you, we can't read it on your LinkedIn profile. It's an honor and a privilege to have shared this time with you, to hear from you. On that note, I want to say thank you so much once again. I mean, I've also taken a lot of learnings, and I believe people as well have taken 1 or 2 learnings. We had a comment from our president, Mr. Wale Adediran as well, who attested to the fact that in the last 50 minutes or so that he's been listening to you, he's taking a lot of learning. For me, that's the cap. You know, for every response we had learnings in them. Thank you so much. On that note, I want to thank everyone, all our participants who took out time from their Sunday to also come and learn and share. Your questions were also spot on. I mean, the learnings that we got also came from the fact that you asked questions. So like I mentioned, questions are the answers that we are all looking for. Thank you. Next 2 Sundays, we have another guest speaker who is going to join us. Her name is Ifeadi. So Ifeadi is another inspiring HR professional who would come and share her story with us. Ifeadi Anigbogu. You know, so I'm also excited about having Ifeadi next 2 Sundays. On that note, thank you everyone once again. Thank you, Dupe. Can we just go off mute and just say thank you to Dupe? Let's Dupe hear our voices.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you,
you
Very
Dupe.
so much,
Thank
Dupe.
you,
Thank
Q.
you.
Loving
What
you.
I said it
Thank
is.
you.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Dupe. It's
Wow,
amazing.
So
wow.
much.
Amazing session. Thank you,
Thank you so
everyone.
much.
Thank you
Thank you
all.
so much.
Thank you
Stay safe
so
and
much. What a
enjoy
great
your
way to
week.
end September.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you. Thank you
everyone.
so much.
Thank you,
Thank
Dupe. Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm happy.
Thank you.